Hello, this is Physiology, presented by the Malash Bazab, a PhD candidate from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Today I will discuss about general principles of physiology in this first episode about body fluids. So the general content that we are going to discuss in serious episode will include body fluid is the first lecture presented now. The next will be homeostasis, and the third will be membrane transport, and the last will be membrane potential. So what are the contents? The contents include the objectives that are going to be discussed will be included. Body fluids. In the body fluids I will discuss extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid and the water. And in the homeostasis, we will discuss the negative feedback and the positive feedback control of the body system. And third, membrane transport will be discussed. And lastly, we will discuss membrane potential. So what we are expected to know is at the end of this lesson, you are expected to know, first, grasp or know the fundamental concept of general physiology and explain the goal, scope, and role of physiology for the survival of human being, and name the different fluid compartments in the human body, describe the homeostatic adjustment of the human body and regulatory mechanisms, discuss the various cellular activities inside the cell, and define and explain the resting membrane potential, and finally mention the various transport mechanisms across or through plasma membrane, and briefly state the listing and propagation of action potential in different types of muscle cells and nerves. So what's physiology? So physiology is a science of body function. It studies the normal functioning of our body systems. So its goal is to explain the physical and chemical factors that are responsible for life. So as you know, historically Hippocrates is known as the father of medicine, but here father of modern physiology is the French physiologist Claude Bernard, who lived from 1813 to 1878. So what's body fluid? The body fluid is the water content in our body, including the various electrolytes and solids. Okay, so when we compare or when we discuss about physiological adjustments or homeostasis in our body, we are taking into consideration the reference level. The reference level is about taking a person who is 70 kilogram weight and 170 centimeter tall. Okay. So unless and otherwise discussed. Okay, so body water, the total body water is about 42 liters in this individual, okay, which is approximately 60% of body weight. So percent of total body weight is highest in newborn. It reaches about up to 75%. Do you know how this is so? Please read and explain. Lowest in adult female, because females have more adipose tissue, so it will render or it will have in correspondence to less water content in their body. So when we compare the infants, the young and the old with their fraction of total body weight to body weight, in the infant it is about 75%, in young men it is about 64%, and in young women it is about 53%, and in old men it is 53%, and in old women it is about 46%. So it corresponds, or it comes in increasing order. So when we take when we consider total body weight in different individuals, we have to consider age, weight, and the fat composition of their body. Okay, so what are the various fluid compartments in our body? These are generally divided into intracellular water and extracellular water. The intracellular water is composed of about 40% of body weight, which is about 28 liters, and the extracellular water is composed of from the interstitial fluid and lymph water and the plasma water. The interstitial fluid water and the lymph water is about 50% of body weight, and which is about 10.5 liters, and the plasma water, which is found in the blood vessels, is about 5% of body weight, which is 3.5 liters. So a total of in the extracellular water is about 20% of body weight, which is 14 liters. So it corresponds to the ECF and ICF totally becomes 42 liter. So fluid intake or water intake in our body should be equal to our output. Okay, so ingestion and elimination should be equal. So the intake is fluid ingestion about 2100 ml. This is corresponding per day, and from metabolism from cellular products of our body about 200 ml. So total intake would be 2300 ml. You can convert it into liter as well. So the output is in the form of insensible skin, which are not aware or which are not conscious about. It is about 350 ml per day, and insensible through lungs through the forms of expiration about 350 ml per day, and through the sweat glands of the skin about 100 ml, and of the feces in the forms of bulk about 100 ml. And the major output is through the urinary system from our kidneys in the form of urine, which is about 1400 ml. So total would be 2300 ml, which is equivalent to the intake. So the intake should be equivalent to the output. So this is in the normal individual, but in sportsmen, in athletes, it can reach up to 6600 ml per day. Okay, this is so high. So the intracellular and the extracellular environments are in connection between them, because the intracellular fluid will communicate and substance will be exchanged from the intracellular fluid by the plasma membrane. So the cytoplasm of the cell will be in communication with the intracellular fluid, so various substance will be exchanged, and the plasma as well will be connected from the interstitial fluid, and substance will be exchanged in and out of its correspondent parts. Okay, the gastrointestinal system is also in communication with the interstitial fluid compartment, so substance and nutrients and gases are going to be exchanged through them. Okay, finally the bulk will be there, and the feces about 0.5 to 0.3 liter of water will be eliminated. So water excretion per 24 hours include in the kidneys 0.6 to 1.5 liter, in lungs about 0.3 to 0.5 liters, in the skin from sweat glands about 0.2 to 1 liter. Okay, this corresponds the total elimination. Okay, so nutrients, salts and water are going to be ingested in the oral cavity, and it will be absorbed in the gastrointestinal system, so it will enter into the circulatory system. So the circulatory system will deliver oxygen and nutrient to the cells, and the cells after metabolism they will eliminate waste and carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide will be eliminated through the respiratory system, and oxygen will be taken up again in the circulatory system. Waste and inorganic waste, salts and water are going to be exchanged, and the excess electrolytes, water and salts are going to be eliminated through the urinary system in the form of urine. So the internal environment is in direct communication with the external environment. So as you see it, the intracellular fluid is divided by or separated by from the extracellular fluid by the cell membrane. So cell membrane is selectively permeable, so there are substances that can cross and some substances that cannot cross within it. So you can see, you can appreciate the different concentration of electrolytes and osmolarities in different compartments. The osmolarity being the same in the intracellular fluid and in the extracellular fluid. So in the extracellular fluid there are also transcellular fluid, which are found in the cerebrospinal fluid, in the synovial joint, and in the peritoneum, on the pleural parts of pleural fluid. These are termed the extracellular fluid apart. So for instance, in the interstitial fluid, sodium concentration is 145 millimole, but in the blood plasma, which is 142 millimole, which is almost the same. But if you take protein composition, protein is 1 millimole in the blood plasma, but in the interstitial fluid it is about 0, because protein cannot escape from the blood plasma to the interstitial fluid blood, because the capillary endothelium is very selectively permeable, and the pores are very minute, so proteins cannot pass definitely. Okay, so you can appreciate the several extracellular fluid and the intracellular compartments in our body. There are various extracellular compositions. So cholesterol, phospholipids, nutrients are here. So partial pressure of oxygen about 35 millimeter of mercury in the extracellular fluid, and it is about 20 millimeter of mercury in intracellular fluid. Okay, Protein composition about 2 grams per deciliter in the extracellular fluid, but in the intracellular fluid about 16 grams per deciliter or 40 milliequivalent per liter. So if you compare the cations and anions in the extracellular fluid and the intracellular fluid, sodium is the major cation in the extracellular fluid and potassium is the major cation in the intracellular fluid. Can you appreciate how such differences exist? So when we compare, when we come to the extracellular volume in different fluid compositions, in the isotonic part, which is there is no net movement of water from the extracellular fluid to the intracellular fluid, which is about 280 milliosmol per liter, and in the compartment B, it is in the hypertonic solution, the cell shrinks because water moves from the intracellular fluid to the extracellular fluid, which is osmolarity will be about 660 milliosmol per liter. But in the figure C, it is in the hypertonic solution because the cell swell, because water moves from the extracellular fluid to the intracellular fluid, so the cell swells, the osmolarity reaches about 200 milliosmol per liter. So osmosis is the movement of water down its concentration gradient. As you know, osmosis is determined by the number of impermeable molecules, or osmotic pressure is the force drawing water down its concentration gradient. As you see in the figure here, water moves from high concentration to a low concentration, from compartment A to compartment B. Okay, so in another way, we have to also determine the tonicity of the cell. So the tonicity of a solution refers to the effect of solution on cell volume. A hypertonic extracellular solution, one in which water concentration lays outside the cell than inside, water leaves the cell and cell volume will decrease. An isotonic extracellular solution is one in which water moves concentration is the same inside and outside the cell. No water movement will occur, so the cell volume doesn't change. In a hypotonic solution is one in which the water concentration is greater outside than inside the cell, so water enters the cell volume increases, as we see it in the picture. An isosmotic solution may not be an isotonic solution if the particles are permeable to the cell membrane. So Darrow Yanet has illustrated several diagrams to compare the ECF and the ICF when there are several factors are happening in the hemostatic environment. So then in the case of DRI, in case of sweating, in case of 0.9 saline infusion, and in case of salt intake, is the corresponding osmosis, osmolarity, and volume curve will be depicted here. Okay, so what do you think, what will happen if the case is burn or vomiting? You should explain this one. Okay, so substances are going to be circulated in the circulatory system. Oxygen will be taken up when blood passes through the lungs, and carbon dioxide will be eliminated through the lungs. So the left heart pump will deliver oxygen and nutrients to the several organs in our body. So in the arterial end, in the venous end, these waste products and carbon dioxide and oxygen are going to be exchanged. So the waste substances are going to be in the venous return. It will be turned to the right heart pump. It will discuss when we discuss about each system. Don't worry. So the 10 body systems that we are going to discuss in advance later on will be in nervous system, endocrine system, respiratory system, cardiovascular system, digestive system, integumentary system, musculoskeletal system, reproductive system, urinary system or excretory system, and the immune system. Sometimes the lymphatic system will be discussed in a separate systemic level, but it can also be accommodated within the immune system. So if you consider it in a separate level, the 11th system will be the lymphatic system. So this will be for today. This is a brief introduction. I will discuss homeostasis later. Please leave your comments for me for a better presentation of the next topics. I will deliver each and every topic within the 11 systems in the coming year. So thank you for listening. I will appreciate your listening, and for further physiology audio lectures, please subscribe. Thank you.